Hello and welcome to our Wednesday check-in here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Now, normally I would call this a quick take. The joke is kind of lost on some people, so we're just going to call these the check-in. We're going to go through a little bit of a rebrand on the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday shows here, where we take a look at Bitcoin's price action. And Bitcoin is essentially in the same place that it was when we last checked in on it on Monday. And that is inside of the risk zone. So on Monday, we saw that it did actually, at the close, I should say, it did push above the risk zone, kind of putting it in between the top side of the risk zone, bottom side of the recovery zone here. I will zoom into the chart in just a moment, but I want you to see the full context of the chart for just a little bit here. When looking left for the risk zone where Bitcoin currently is trading and got a slight rejection, kind of ran both sides of the risk zone, top side of the danger zone, bottom side of the risk zone here as well. In yesterday's price action, currently getting a shorter term time frame rejection at the top side here at around 58,400. Well, when we look left, I want you to note that this is the same place that Bitcoin tried to find support over here as a front run of the first downtrend of the range here, where the closing low came in at 58.3 or so, 58,267 in this case. We had a big spike down here during the second major downtrend of this range, and that came in at that 58.4. So that has been kind of the new area of interest to the downside, kind of splitting the difference between the close open and the wick low here. This came in on significant volume. I don't usually complicate the chart with volume and get into volume analysis with you, but if there is an interest from the audience out there, from you guys, let me know. In this case, we can see that before turning that trend around, we had a little bit of a closing higher low here. We did get, a nice swing low set, swing high, another swing higher low, swing higher high, swing higher low, but the closing low is set, and you can see right where that primary resistance was at 58.4 prior to popping up before the third major downtrend of the range here. Now, this hasn't been a consistent downtrend. It was a major move down with a mean reversion back here through some of the overhead resistance or support and resistance areas. And now it's trying to save itself around the risk zone. So let's zoom in for a moment here. And you can see that there is, the primary overhead resistance here that I'm calling out on the daily at 58.4. If Bitcoin does push above there and close anywhere above yesterday's high, so this would be Wednesday's high. It's still Wednesday for me, but Bitcoin is living in the future on Thursday. Then I would look at this swing low here down into the top side of the danger zone at around 555. There you go. 555s across the board. So, if it does close anywhere above yesterday's high at 58,531, then this would be a swing low set. What I would need to see from there, is in the lower term timeframes for it to push up again above the Tuesday open, which was at 59,138. If we see any closes above here on the daily, then that would be a closing low set in addition to a swing low set. So as long as Bitcoin is staying above this swing low at around that 55,555, then it has the opportunity to set the swing low on a closing basis anywhere above yesterday's wick high. Again, that's coming in at right above 58,500. And then for a closing low to be set, I need to see a close back above 59,140 or so. That would look good to at least see Bitcoin test up, somewhere around the bottom side of the recovery zone here. Maybe even this, front run of $60,000, this wick high from that Tuesday candle. But somewhere around 60,000 to 60,300 at the bottom side of the recovery zone. Anywhere above there, I would be looking somewhere around the $61,000. Granted, this did come in, this wick high did come in a little bit higher than that at 61,200, but I would essentially be looking for around 61 to the close open here with the wicks around 61.8. So between 61 and 61.8, above there, 62.8 at the swing high, not wing high, swing high even. And if we did start to see lower term time frame closes, like a 4 or 6 hour below the daily, start to get above there, then we can start looking up to the top side of the recovery zone again at 63.8 to 64K, and possibly any closes above there, and we can identify this as the next major high. This is $65,000 that needs to be tested into the bottom side of the pivot zone at 65.5. So that's kind of the medium term that I'm looking for in terms of upside criteria. Anywhere above, 65.5. Of course, this $65,000 was 65,050 bucks, was essentially a retest of the prior cycle's first all-time high that it put in on a longer term time frame, not just a daily, but like a weekly and monthly time frame at 65 before running up later on in the year to $69,000. But in this case, that was pretty much a test right on that. Anywhere above there, the pivot zone is at 65.5 to 67,272. Again, I'm not going to get into it today, maybe a little bit on Friday about why these zones are so important. This was like the first major downtrend. This was the first major high that was put in of the first downtrend in this range. So that's where that is coming in. And it acted as primary resistance more than a few times on the daily. It acted as support at, when Bitcoin tagged the double top on a wick at $72,000. Even tried to act as support for a couple days here, a day and a half, 2 days on a close open, and then a couple more days here as support while Bitcoin tested $68,000 to $70,000. We'll get into more of that on Friday. Now, if Bitcoin does start to trade back below the bottom side of the risk zone, top side of the danger zone at 55,850, that is this close open. This is the close open low of the second major downtrend of the range. Then I would be, of course, if it hasn't already started to run yesterday's low, which is the Wednesday low, at around that 55,555, I would look for that criteria to be fulfilled. And then, it's fair game all the way down to the close open of the most recent or third major downtrend. And this is the lower low close open of this entire move at around $54,000 to the bottom side of the danger zone at 53.5, which is this wick low here. Now, this is kind of butting right up against some stuff that I'm going to show again on Friday on the longer term time frame charts when we go to talk about like the weeklies. But there's 53 is a swing high from 2021, and then we have some close open highs on the weeklies that are basically between $53,000 and $50,000. You can take it. It's actually 50,850 to 51.8 with a 53 swing high, but we don't need to really mince that hard on it. It's basically 50 to 53. Anywhere below, 53.5, this target one of distribution is fair game to get filled out. And that would actually include the current moves low at around $49,000, which happens to be the ETF spike high before a big move down to a major monthly level at 38.5. So back in January, when the ETFs were coming into launch, we saw a nice run up to $49,000 and then a dump off from there to around 38,500, which was a major monthly level. And it nearly tagged it perfectly. So much like this tagged the ETF high, near perfect, that tagged on the low side there, near perfect after the ETF launch. Now, anywhere below there that isn't just a swing, meaning a close below $49,000, and I'm looking for target 2 of distribution to start getting filled out between 49 and around 45. Yes, this is a monthly area at 45.5 on the close, but essentially 45 to 49. One of the major things that we do have to take a look at and update is, some of the miner competition on the network has been dropping off as miners kind of, take this time period to adjust equipment and fix things, take miners down and take racks down and save a little bit of money and kind of do maintenance, maybe even do some upgrades, stuff like that. So we have seen the electrical cost or the absolute floor cost for the price as it relates to Bitcoin to mine Bitcoin for electricity. So when just accounting for electricity for miners, they're still well below production cost. But in this case, this would be kind of the fire sale price. And this needs to be updated because I think it has slid ever so slightly. It's currently, I have it marked off at 43,250, which is coming into a top side of a major zone here at target 3 of distribution. I will get into that a little bit more on Friday, but let's go ahead and update this. Beware your eyes. This chart is white. So 3, 2, 1. Here we go. And yes, it did step down ever so slightly. The electrical cost floor is around 43,100. Now, the reason why I use Caprioli's charts is they match very closely my internal mining pool's metrics for electrical costs. So it's not exact. There is a margin of error here. We're actually a little bit lower for my pool. I think we're around 41, $40 to $41,000 for electrical costs. But when you take it in aggregate, there's probably some other pools that are running higher for electrical costs. So in this case, 43,105 is a fair electrical cost estimate that he is running here. So let's go ahead and essentially just call this 43,100. And yeah, that is essentially hovering right above the 42,500 top three of target, or the top of the target three of distribution. Sorry. All right, so talked a little bit about trend and support and resistance kind of all in one. This is a not a head and shoulders just yet. If it popped back up and, kind of put it in a right shoulder over here, kind of maybe a little bit lower at like 60,300, you could call it a tilted head and shoulders. For you pattern traders out there, I still would just take a level. If anything, you got to beware the throwback to the head, which would be right back to $65,000. That's always, it's kind of a 50-50 crap shot when it comes to head and shoulders patterns and inverted head and shoulders patterns. Otherwise, essentially we're looking to around $53.5 to $50,000, or 53 to 53.5 if we were really going to take the breakdown on that. Anyway, so just looking at support and resistance is fine without having to understand any of the intricacies or validations or invalidations of patterns. Let's go ahead and look at volatility on the daily. We can see that it's kind of in a range movement right now for volatility. It is elevated, so price can move pretty freely between the bands to the upside and downside. Let's zoom in to see where things kind of line up with support and resistance, some of the key levels. So in this case, Bitcoin's, kind of hovering within the risk zone here around the lower first of volatility. We even saw that we had basically a close below, a move above the lower first, and then a spike right down into the lower second. So pretty easy. If Bitcoin can trade and close candles above the lower first, and of course meet the criteria of closing above 58,400, then I would look for, again, right around the basis, right around 60,000 to the top side, or bottom side, of the recovery zone here at 60,300. Above there, we're looking around the mid zone. Again, that's 61.8 by the upper first. And then above there, we're looking around essentially 63.8 to $64,000 or so. And above there, the high at this high up here at 65 to that bottom side of that pivot zone at around 65.5, and then into it to that 67,272. So we're getting some good confluences. Now, if Bitcoin were to break down and lose 55,850 and especially get below and close below the lower second, we would start to see expansion. Of course, targeting where the lower third is at 53.5 down to around $53,000 initially. And if it can't recover that lower second and of course that 55,850, then we're looking for continuation. To the upside, if Bitcoin were to move all the way back and start closing back above around $64,000 and the upper second standard deviation, we're looking for, again, tests into that 65.5 to 67,272. You can even, throw a wick up to 68, closes above 67,272, and I would start to mark up to around 68 to 70. So volatility is kind of in a range play right now. Moves back down to the lower second that don't close below it and can hold somewhere around that 55,850. If bulls can prevent a further push down, the longer they can hold on, the better. And then try to move things back to the upside. So we've got, essentially trend is mixed here. One of the big things is I've said this before, is the trend is your friend until the end of the trend. And, I've always added on that when the trend is unclear, everyone's in fear, both bulls and bears in this case, because, it's kind of trendless. We have an uptrending structure here in the context of a wider downtrend, and now we have a trend break. There's a swing downtrend here, but it's not, really a closing downtrend just yet. So in this case, it's just a trend break. We would need to see a pop up to a lower high. So we just kind of have to wait to see what Bitcoin decides to do in this case. Let's go ahead and take a look at momentum. That is the next big piece. That's, your trend, your support and resistance, and your volatility are what make up momentum. And in this case, we have a regular stochastic to measure momentum. This is a fancy dancy indicator. There's plenty of free ones that have momentum pivots, like what I'm going to show you in just a moment. You can just go up to indicators and type in reverse stoch panel, and you can get a pretty popular one that has the same exact pivots. This just has other stuff like an ADX and DMI and some zones of interest and stuff like that. So nothing that you really need. But the more important thing is on closes above 57, 250, 260, this would turn momentum back to the upside for Stoke. That would only be an initial cross. We would need to see follow through above whatever the next pivot number would be. So I do suggest that you grab a reverse Stoke and a regular one, not a Stoke RSI. Stoke RSI measures the velocity of RSI, whereas a regular Stoke measures close over close price momentum. And I already use an RSI, so I don't need a momentum indicator to show me what the relative strength index, which is also a momentum indicator, is showing me. In this case, I can look at RSI here. I can see that the bearish control zone down here is right around, well, if it's right around the current low, it's actually at 55,530. So that would be right around the current low of yesterday's move. If we did see Bitcoin trading back above the 12-period moving average here, that would be looking at Bitcoin back above around $59,000. Scale midline is at around 60. And then just so we have our bases covered between the two zones, the edge of the bullish control zone here is coming in at 65,640 or so. So essentially that just above that most recent high at 65, that pivot zone at 65,500. So we have a bunch of confluences all over the board here. If Bitcoin's going to push into the bearish control zone, that means it's moving. Yes, it's losing and moving down below yesterday's low. So let's do one more thing here and take a look at just something like the 12-hour and see how that's doing real quick. Yeah, so we're back into a bit of a compression phase here on the 12-hour. Very clearly, if we see that 55,850 lost on the 12-hour, that also loses this low at 55,555 because it is a lower term time frame than the daily, as we will get two 12 hours. We're on the first of those. I would be wanting to see a close that closed below 55,850 and 55,555 to look for expansion further down into the 53.5 to 53 and so on and so forth. To the upside, it needs to get above that 55 or 58 rather 400, take out that basis band, which is right here at the last closing high on the 12-hour at 59,140. And then we can look to that 60,000, 60,300 where this upper first currently is. Closes above there would still be set up for a rejection, to be quite honest, because of the compression of the bands. When moving into a compression, unless it's going to do a quick compression, then close below the lower second and take out the low, or get above the upper second, then I'm not looking for re-expansion. It would have to get above the upper second, push that upper third, and then get above it at around that 63,800 to 64K, and it still would have to beat out this high up here. So, this is a downtrend on the daily. On the 12-hour. It's not just a trend break. So we do have, swing high to swing. We had the swing low and the trend break, right? We had the swing high that turned into a closing high. We had the closing lower low, closing lower high, and this is, going to be a lower low even if it stays here. If it closes anywhere below the 56,500, then it would be another lower high, and we'd be looking for that lower second at 55,850 and under to get tested. But I do want to see what momentum looks like here because we've discussed kind of what we want to see on the daily. And the 12-hour does have upside momentum already. And that's as long as it's closing candles, at least this next 12-hour candle above $57,000. Currently, trading only about $194 to $200 above there. So the bulls have some work to do. If we were to drop down one more time frame to the 4-hour, we've got upside momentum as long as Bitcoin is above 56,700. So, if this closes anything like this in the next 46 minutes, this is a lower high. You'd want to see it holding that lower first and then pop right back up above 58.4. So again, all the same criteria. Take out that 59 200 or so, 140 200, and then 59 almost $60,000 here to go test higher. Yeah, so not seeing too many things that are developing that are very bullish just yet. Obviously, the ball is in the bears' court here. Continuation is pretty easy to pick out below 55, 850 on a close. Gonna run yesterday's low and probably lower. Start closing back above 60K. Gonna test that 60,300 and above. So let's see what the 4 hours looking like. Again, momentum with the lower high being put in, this might actually turn bearish again, but as long as it's above 56,700 for now, it's looking okay. If it can go sideways for a little bit, there's that continuation drive of bearish divergence developing though into this last 45 minutes of this 4 hour candle. So bulls gotta hang on here and at least keep closes above 55 850, and then we'll come back to it. If not, it's continuation. But that's going to do it for me today. I'll catch up with you on the Friday show, and we'll call that the wrap up and kind of what to look forward to for the weekend. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out.